Today, as you may have guessed, if you've not read the program, it is about parallel structures in finance. So we are going to be hearing panels today a little bit later on about it. In fact, the last panel, make sure you stick around for that. There's going to be a gold guy, a regular financial system guy, and a Bitcoin guy having a very, hopefully, heated discussion. That's what we're all here to see. And we are also going to hear from the likes of Stephan Livera here, and we're going to have a panel later on about the Free Madeira project that was announced last week at another conference. And we're going to have some people zoom in from that conference to join us live on stage. Our next guest is Mr. Stephan Livera. Now, Stephan is a podcaster. He's managing director at Swan Bitcoin International and an Austrian economist. He's going to give us a talk about changing business and disrupting finance. Please welcome Stephan Livera.
Thank you. So first of all, thank you to the organizers and thank you to you all for showing up. I think it's been an excellent experience so far. I'm a Bitcoin podcaster, and I've been doing my show now for over 4 years. I've done over 400 interviews. So I've interviewed a lot of people talking about Bitcoin and economics. And so Peter of the Free Cities Foundation asked me to give a few insights that I've gleaned from my time in the Bitcoin industry, some of those interviews I've done, and give you some insights into this idea, this notion of Bitcoin as a parallel structure, which is obviously the focus for this. Okay. Oh, okay, here we go. We're good now. Okay, gotcha. So, I'm sure a lot of people here, being libertarian or fellow traveler-minded, you already have heard about Bitcoin. The chances are you probably have some Bitcoin. So maybe you don't need a really strong case around, why Bitcoin. But I think here's the next step for a lot of people. I think we're probably at a stage where a lot of people know about Bitcoin, but do they use it day to day? Do they use it in a way that they can't be stopped? I think that's probably the next step for a lot of people, because there may be individuals who are using, let's say, a custodial platform where you are relying on that individual. Or let's say if you are using it for payment, we haven't done it in a way that we can't be shut down. Right? So obviously I respect your privacy. I'm not asking you to dox yourself or whatever, but let me just step you through a few examples, right? So do you have some Bitcoin? Do you hold it in your own self-custody wallet? Do you run a Bitcoin node? Are you using Lightning nodes? Do you have your own payment processing? I think these are all questions that are worthwhile all of us answering and thinking about. So why the need for Bitcoin? Well, simply, there's the three high-level reasons, I think, that you should think about. So one is many of us are either being shut down or having issues with standard legacy fiat banking. Secondly, it's simply easier and faster. And you may just actually be bullish on Bitcoin, either the asset or Bitcoin, the technology. Bitcoin is an open source and free network, free as in freedom, and anybody can sign up and use Bitcoin. You can have a wallet on your phone, and you don't have to show your passport or your driver's license necessarily to use Bitcoin. So those are some of the reasons why you might be bullish. So as an example, have you been financially cancelled? And perhaps not yet, right? So here are some examples, and again, I'm not passing a judgment saying these are good people and they should not have been, but the point is, all of these people have been shut down in some way, shape or form by the fiat system. So obviously Kanye spoke about how he had, I believe, over $100 million in one of the big US banks, and then they shut him down. Gab, a few years ago, an alternative social media network, especially at a time when people are concerned about social media censorship, they got shut down. So they had to start using Bitcoin. The Canadian trucker protest is another example where people wanted to help them and give them some money using platforms such as GiveSendGo and GoFundMe, And of course, they were politically unpopular, and that money got stopped and shut down. But on the other hand, people were able to make donations using Bitcoin. So there is a need for people who are freedom-minded and liberty-minded to actually take this seriously and actually take that next step in terms of becoming more financially sovereign. So, and sanctions, and we've seen the PayPal story as well. So the recent news with PayPal saying we will dock you $2,500 out of your account if we catch you saying what we call misinformation. Who defines what misinformation is? Why are we trusting these other people with our money? And yes, the answer is convenience in many cases. I understand it's not as convenient to set up your own thing, but as the comments of the last few days came, part of this idea is if you want freedom, well, you also have to take on that responsibility. And that may mean running your own Bitcoin node or using your own Bitcoin wallet, setting up your own Bitcoin payment processing. So today I'm going to try to show you a few practical examples how you can do this for yourself, right? It's one thing to have a talk fest, but what's the actionable step? What can I do? And I'm going to show you some of those steps. So the other thing to think about, you might say, look, Stephan, it doesn't matter to me. I haven't been cancelled yet. I'm fine using PayPal and Cash App and Venmo and so on. But my friend Samson Mao of Jan3 has this to say about that. You can either use Bitcoin or you can research the ideologies of all the board members and executives at these companies and hope that you do not hold a different position to them. Because if not, they may well shut you down. It could happen. It's happened to other people, and we, as the libertarian and free-minded people, have to understand this. This is the world we're in today. You may not like it. We can say it's not fair, but at the end of the day, we have to take action. And this is one thing where I see different parts of, let's say, more right-wing movements. I see some people who spend a lot of time whining and not a lot of time building and doing something about it. Right? There's one thing about, I'm not going to name names, but you can probably think of, there's a few, let's say, right-wing influencers who love to complain about the things that are going on or being shut down. But do you see a Bitcoin donation address or a BTC Pay server on their website? Do they take Bitcoin payments for their services and products? So there's a misalignment between what people are saying and what they are doing. And it's important for all of us to really live our ethos and live our values as much as possible, right? When none of us are perfect, but we should be trying. We should be improving our sovereignty where possible. So, who here has ever sent or received an international wire? Yeah, most of you. Now, who here has ever had an issue with an international wire? Oh, wow. So you can see, so this is my theory, this is the Venn diagram. Those who have sent wires and those who have had issues. It's pretty much 99.9% of people who use international wires have had some issue. But Bitcoin is a lot easier. As you may have seen, it's as simple as pulling out your phone, scan the QR, hit send. There are other ways too. So look at all the things. So that for those of you who, maybe if you haven't sent an international wire, these are the things they will typically ask you. You need to give a SWIFT or IBAN code. You need to have the account number. You need the legal name of your recipient. They may ask you, what's the ultimate beneficial owner of this entity? They may ask you, what's the purpose of sending? They may ask you your source of income or wealth. And even after all of this, if there's still some error, you could still get delayed or still have your payment rejected. So we clearly need a better system. The current system is failing people. So I'm going to talk you through a few examples. So as I'm sure many of you are familiar, and I'm sure people here, some of you are alumni or work with Students for Liberty. Now, Students for Liberty is an example of a libertarian organization who do use Bitcoin in practice. So I spoke to my friend Wolf, the CEO of Students for Liberty, and he gave me a few insights that I can share with you. In Students for Liberty, they use Bitcoin as payouts for staff and for volunteers. So they have 20 staff who receive either part or all of their income in Bitcoin. They have thousands of volunteers around the world, and there may be instances where it literally is easier to send them Bitcoin so that they can run a Students for Liberty event than to do all the international wire stuff we spoke about. So it is a real thing. You can really use it to improve your freedom, and you can get around this international wire drama, and it may actually be more cost effective. So that's some real-world example. And Students for Liberty also use this software known as BTC Pay Server. So that is another self-hosted software. You can host it yourself, and you can use this to accept Bitcoin donations. You can sell Bitcoin, you can sell products for Bitcoin, and it has plugins so that it can work together with things like WordPress or Magento and some of these e-commerce websites. So you can plug it in together, and you can now be a self-sovereign payment processor yourself and receive those coins into your wallet, not into PayPal's wallet or somebody else's wallet. So this is a quick little video I'm just showing you. It's a little GIF. Let me just explain what's going on here. So you can see here, I'm getting an invoice. I'm clicking there. I click pay, and boom. That is a payment going from my own Lightning node to make a payment online to pass a paywall on a website. And that paywall is about 3 USD cents, or about 150 sats, satoshis. So what's going on here? Basically, there is a plugin. It's called Albi. So I can connect my Lightning node together with Albi, which is a browser extension, and this allows me to make payments on the web just like this. This is also a new functionality, because think about if you were to try and otherwise use a credit card here or PayPal. I would probably have to type in my name, my address, and all the same drama that could come, just like we spoke about before. But think about how easy and how quick it is to literally click Lightning, pay now, and within a few seconds, payment done. That's how easy commerce could be online if we use parallel structures, Bitcoin. So I'm trying to give you some real-world examples of what you can do today. And in fact, the Albi team have launched a plugin which you can do on WordPress. So for those of you, WordPress, as I'm sure many of you know, it powers something like 35 or maybe even 40% of the web. So this is a plugin that you can install on your website, and you can have a Lightning paywall. So you can make a Bitcoin payment over the Lightning network, and it can be just as quick and simple like this. So I'll make another example here. So Bitcoin charities. So another well-known one in the Bitcoin world, which maybe not everybody knows about, bitcoinsmiles.org. So this is an example where it's in El Zonte, in El Salvador, and they used BTC Pay Server to take donations of Bitcoin, and they were able to very quickly spin up this entity and use it to do their donation, do this project. So here's Pavlinex from the team mentioning, basically, we don't need to read the whole thing, but the gist of it is, basically, if he had tried to do this like a full-on entity, it might have taken like a year or so. But with BTC Pay and with Bitcoin, he was able to set this up, get it done, just two of them. They raised 2 Bitcoin. In current fiat prices, that's, call it $38,000 or $39,000 USD. They raised that much money, and they were able to provide health, dental care for people in El Zonte who have bad teeth. So, and of course, you could be bullish on Bitcoin, the asset, right? And I think everyone's kind of familiar with this idea, right? That everyone's looking at, look how good the US dollar has been. But the reality is, even the US dollar is going down in value. So, So another quick example. In years gone by, would all these companies otherwise have been stuck holding government bonds on their balance sheet? Bitcoin can be a parallel structure here too, because instead of holding government bonds, you could be holding Bitcoin on your treasury. And so here are some real-world examples. Obviously, most famously is Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy, but Perth Heat is a baseball team in Australia. I've interviewed many people relating to some of these stories, but you can see MicroStrategy and Perth Heat. Tahini's is another well-known one in the Bitcoin world. And those of you who know what Bitcoin did, Peter McCormack, the host of that show, he started Real Bedford. And that is, again, a Bitcoin-based, let's say, soccer club or football club. So, some real-world examples. Breeze is an example of an app that you can use. It's just a phone app, and you can, if you're just a one-man band or you're at a farmer's market and you want to take payment, you can use Breeze as an example, and it's got a little POS mode built in. And so it's just one app, you install it, and now you can take payment in Bitcoin. Like I mentioned, BTC Pay Server, you can self-host it yourself. You can use a VPS, a virtual private server. You can set this up on your website for e-commerce, or you can have, let's say, you've got a tablet and you use this tablet in your cafe, and that's connected with your BTC Pay. So I'm trying to give you some actionable Here's how you actually do it to take payment with Bitcoin and use this parallel structure. Now, of course, there are other options. You can use some of the what's known as KYC or custodial gateways providers, people like Ebex Mercado, Coin Corner, Bitfinex Pay. So they can help you. But of course, like we mentioned before, we want you to be financially sovereign. So if you're able to, I recommend you take that time and you learn. So, quick example. If you wanted to do this today, how would you do it? So voltage.cloud is an example of a VPS, virtual private server. Now they've basically cooked it up into a recipe or into a script that basically spins up your BTC Pay. And you can pay, I think it's about $9 a month for a BTC Pay. And that will be a cloud node, to be clear. That's in the cloud. It's not as self-sovereign. But if you need an easy way to get started, it's still more sovereign than trusting PayPal. So you can set up your own payment processing and take payment. Another option is nodl.cloud. It's a bit more expensive. That's kind of more at the 59 euros per month level, but it's arguably a bit more self-sovereign because they're not hosting it on Amazon and things like this, right? So I'm trying to give you examples. Now, if you want to self-host, you can get an old laptop. You can buy a $150 ThinkPad. You can buy a $150 2 terabyte hard drive, roughly. So for an approximate cost of $300 up front, and then your ongoing cost is basically internet and power. Now, yes, this takes a bit more configuration, but this is also a very cost-effective way for you to be self-sovereign and use the parallel structure. Now, a quick example. You could be a web developer in whatever country. You could be in Zimbabwe, you could be in Sri Lanka, you could be in America. BTC Pay allows you to invoice in Bitcoin. It gives people a persistent website link. Now, yes, you need a website also connected to this, but you can give people that payment in request, and you can charge, in this example, $750, and it will automatically do that conversion. The person visiting will just go to this website and just pay you, and you're done. So this is another great example where you, as a freelancer, as a worker, or even as a business, you could invoice other people using BTC Pay. So there's a few examples there. Now, when it comes to if you need to drop back to the legacy fiat world, well, here are some examples of, in keeping with our theme of parallel structures, these are some non-KYC examples. So for example, you could use a platform like Bisq, HODL HODL, or a new one, which is RoboSat. So this is how you could, let's say you've earned that Bitcoin, you've been earning Bitcoin for doing your job or your service, web development or whatever your job is, and then you now need to sell some of that back to fiat. Well, you can use some of these non-KYC platforms. And so this is a more peer-to-peer way to do it. The other common one is bitrefill.com. So you can buy vouchers for a whole range of things. And there are, of course, websites that you can pay with Bitcoin, right? Cheapair.com, they've been doing it since, I think, 2013 or 14. You can buy air tickets using Bitcoin, of course. You can use Bitrefill and get your products and services that way. Another idea with parallel structures, btcmap.org. So what's this? This is a free and open source project. I've interviewed these guys recently on my podcast also. For those of you interested, you can search Stephan Livera podcast and see one of the recent episodes. Basically, these guys are going around and doing some open tagging of locations. So they are going through and tagging and listing places where you can spend your Bitcoin. So as a quick example, there's what they're branding as Bitcoin Island in Boracay, Philippines. And look at all the places on the island that you can spend Bitcoin. So again, it's the same idea. It's a parallel structure. You could have earned your Bitcoin anywhere in the world, and you could be paying for your flight with Bitcoin, landing there, and being a tourist there. So that's a few examples. So we've gone through a lot today. But what's the final takeaway? If you take one thing away, just remember, if you haven't been cancelled yet, you probably will be. So, right? And I'll give you another quick example. Commonwealth Bank of Australia, the biggest bank in Australia, they recently came out with this whole carbon footprint thing on your credit card. And we can see where this is going, right? Of course, it starts optional. They say, oh, you can optionally see where your expenditure, how much carbon you have been using, you naughty boy or girl. You've been using so much carbon, and that's only for the rich World Economic Forum Davos elite. You little plebs, us little plebs, we are not allowed to use carbon. You can see where this is going. So I would encourage you to take the time, learn about Bitcoin. It's a free and open system. It's rapidly improving over time. It's technologically improving quickly. And we can see this. So my call to action for you is play around with a Bitcoin payment processor. Go to voltage.cloud or nodl.cloud and play around. Try and set up your own payment processing and use it in your own commerce, right? Talking is great, but action is also an important thing. So, I've only got about a minute left, so I guess if there's one question, I can probably take it. Just here. And thank you, yeah.
Hi, thank you for your talk. So you propose Bitcoin as a solution to entities that want payments that can be canceled, and I agree with you. In the Bitcoin white paper, it proposes Bitcoin as a system for peer-to-peer payments without a trusted third party. Does the Lightning Network not reintroduce the problem of a cancelable person by creating an authority that holds custody of your funds?
But remember, you can run your own Lightning node, right? So
how much money do you need to tie up to receive micropayments? Because setting up a Lightning node at this point might as well just be setting up a financial institution, because you're creating an entity that can be censored.
So remember, maybe I don't have time to go into the detail, but I'll give you the short answer is you can spin up a Lightning node. You can have an inbound channel created to you in a non-custodial way without even KYCing. So yes, you would pay for that. Or the other way is you can bring your own, you could put some of your own Bitcoin on it, open a channel, spend a little bit of sats, and now you've got inbound. That was a bit technical, and I understand for people who aren't deeply into the Bitcoin world, but the short answer is you can get inbound channels without KYC. So basically you would pay for it. And I mean, look, right now, what's your alternative? You're paying 3, 4, 5% to Visa, MasterCard, or PayPal. If you're paying 0.4% to somebody for them to open a channel to you, is that the end of the world? I don't think so, especially when you have other ways, right? So let's say you're a popular cause, you could ask, hey, I need some inbound liquidity. Can you guys open some channels to me? And boom, done. That's something people do in the community today. So the short answer is you can set up without KYC and you can have channels inbound created to you. So yes, Lightning nodes can be run in a sovereign way. And that's even using that laptop example I gave before, the $300 laptop. You can set up a Lightning node on that and you're done. I think that's all I've got time for. So thank you. And any questions, you can come and ask me later. Thank you all. Yeah.